enlightening and inspiring evening ahead. Firstly, we'd like to extend our gratitude to a prominent figure in academia, Professor Dr. Şule Itır Satoğlu, Deputy Rector of Istanbul Technical University, for gracing us with her presence and insights.
Dear distinguished guests, dear members of the press, in the 250th anniversary of its foundation, Istanbul Technical University continues to organize various seminars where expert guests share their experiences in their fields. Today, in our seminar organized by the Faculty of Aeronautics and Astronautics, we are hosting retired NASA astronaut, Miss Dorothy Metcalf-Lindenburger. She will tell us about her science adventure and talk about her space experiences. Miss Metcalf-Lindenburger, once again, welcome to Istanbul Technical University. Dear guests, without further ado, I would like to briefly tell you about Ms. Metcalf-Lindenburger. She completed her geologic education at Whitman College in Washington with honors in 1997. She received teaching certification from Central Washington University in 1999. She taught earth science and astronomy for 5 years. During her studies at the university, she conducted scientific research on mapping. She was selected by NASA as mission specialist in May 2004. In February 2006, she completed astronaut candidate training, which included scientific and technical briefings, intensive instruction in shuttle and International Space Station systems, psychological training, T-38 flight training, and water and wilderness survival training. In 2010, she was a mission specialist on the crew of STS-131 and logged more than 15 days in space. After her space flight, she worked as an astronaut support personnel for the final 3 shuttle missions. In 2012, she commanded the NASA Extreme Environment Mission Operations 16. This underwater research crew carried out simulated spacewalks to investigate the techniques and tools that may be used at a near-Earth asteroid. Metcalf-Lindenburger retired from NASA on June 13, 2014. After her retirement, she pursued a master's degree in geology at the University of Washington from 2014 to 2016. As I hand the floor over to Ms. Metcalf-Lindenburger, I greet you with all our respect.
Thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here with all these people. Teşekkürler. So I want to talk to the young as well as the young at heart and remind all of us that the things that make us successful in life, the things that make our studies rewarding and interesting are being curious on a daily basis, being challenged, always trying to do our best, working to what we're interested in, and being courageous, making sure we try things that are hard for us and don't give up. So I'll talk about that as well as my own journey, of course, to becoming an astronaut, which started with curiosity. I had parents that were both in the STEM fields. My mom was a mathematician. My dad was a scientist and then also went on to become an engineer. And when my sister and I were growing up in the 1980s, something happened that was really important for both of us, and it really changed what I thought was possible for myself. So in the 1980s, I was a little girl in elementary school, and Sally Ride became the first American woman to fly in space. Now, she's not the first woman. That was Valentina Tereshkova 20 years before, but I wasn't alive when Valentina first flew. So this was really the first time that I seen a woman go to space, and this was impressive to me, so that when my elementary teacher asked, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Well, I thought, I would like to be an astronaut. It's possible that little girls can dream about becoming an astronaut. But you can't just dream about something. You have to know how to get there. What are the steps you need to take to become an astronaut or to become whatever you want to be? So I had the opportunity then as a 15-year-old to study at a camp in a different state. It's called Huntsville, Alabama, is where the camp is at. And this is a space camp. You also have a space camp here in Turkey, in Izmir, and they are like sister camps. Anyway, in April of 1990, I went to this camp. I built model rockets. I launched a rocket. I learned from engineers. I even pretended to be an astronaut. And I also helped with the mission control team. So I learned about all the processes. And they had people come from NASA to speak to us and learn about how do you build and begin to work towards an education and working towards NASA. So I left camp. I was very inspired. And I was also inspired because in April of 1990, the vehicle Discovery was carrying Hubble, the telescope, into space. So I came home from camp and I built the model of that shuttle that took Hubble into space, and that was Discovery. And I hung that model in my room as a physical reminder of my big goal, my big dream. And then I continued in high school to participate in science clubs and to also be an athlete. So here I'm with my team at a Science Olympiad tournament for the state of Colorado. We were taking second place. Eventually, I would go on to study at the university, a small school, as you heard, in Washington State. And there I would study geology and have the opportunity to also do internships, as well as to compete on the cross-country and track team there. I really love studying geology. I love solving problems and thinking about the past through rocks and sediments to think about how to solve problems of the present and future. And so as I was graduating from Whitman, I had this plan laid out in front of me. I thought, okay, I will take a small gap to learn and work, and then I will come back from that work experience and I will go get my master's and then my PhD. But the job that I had been hired for was Peace Corps, and I was going to Kazakhstan to teach English as a second language. But Kazakhstan pulled away from Russia in 1997, and therefore my job was canceled. I was not allowed to go and teach English. So suddenly I was left without a job, and I hadn't applied to a master's program because I thought I'd be working for 2 years. So I wasn't really sure what to do. I felt actually very disappointed. I didn't know what I was going to do in my next steps. So I went home to my family, we talked about it, and I decided I'd still like to work before getting my master's, so I would still like to do something, and I decided to become a science teacher because I had those skills, and that was a job that I knew that I would be interested in. So as you heard in my introduction, one of my students was also curious. And while I was teaching astronomy, she wondered, like, what's the engineering behind a space toilet? How do astronauts go to the bathroom in space? I don't know. I didn't know how astronauts went to the bathroom in space, so I had to look it up. And the NASA website has a whole section dedicated to this. It's a very popular question for young people. And so I learned and was able to take that back to my classroom. But I also found out on that same website that they were hiring teachers as part of the NASA astronaut class of 2004. I couldn't believe it. they were hiring teachers to become astronauts. It was so exciting. I had to apply. So my curiosity, my students' curiosity, got me to apply. I eventually went to Houston, Texas for all the medical tests, all the psychology and aptitude tests, and even an interview with other astronauts. And during that week of interviews, I also got to take a tour and see what the simulator for the space shuttle toilet looked like. So I took that back to my students. And as you know, I ended up being selected as part of that class. So now I want to talk to you. Once you've become an astronaut, what do astronauts do? How do they prepare to go to space? Especially now that we are flying to the International Space Station on a regular basis, and we're looking out and beyond to flying back to the moon. So all astronauts need a set of skills, and the first one is teamwork. It's very important, of course, that you can't just expect yourself to be able to do everything, that you truly need to do this as a team. So the team that I came in with was this class of 2004, and it included pilots, doctors, engineers, scientists, as well as other teachers, and 3 Japanese crew members. Oops, I went ahead. 3 Japanese crew members, and we set out to do survival training in the wilderness. We do this because we fly in aero vehicles and airplanes across the United States, as well as across the water. So we did survival training to build our teamwork, and we did water survival to also build teamwork. And then after this training, we started learning the systems first of airplanes so that we could then learn the systems of space vehicles, because all space vehicles are kind of rooted in aerospace. And so planes have engines, rockets have engines, planes have ways of creating electricity, communication, navigation, environmental control, all of these things. So you start with the basics and then you build it to the more complex. So we started with simulators, and then a slower plane, the prop plane, and eventually we went into the T-38 jet. And we can get in this airplane about once a week, and we use it to do teamwork and to think about a real risk environment. Of course, flying in jets is risky. There's always weather. There's always parts that can have problems on the airplane. And so you have to think about these things before you go fly, just like you have to prepare to go to space. And then, personally, I learned all the systems of the space shuttle, but that vehicle has been retired. So current astronauts are learning the systems of the space station, which I also learned, but they're also learning the systems of maybe the Orion capsule, or also the SpaceX, Soyuz, some of these other capsules. So again, the space station has many complex systems. Most of them are run from the ground by mission control, but the astronaut does have some interface with that. And then we will be flying in the future in the Orion vehicle, so learning about capsules and learning how they work as well. After you do this type of training, then you have to do more specialized training. So currently we use a lot of robotic arms in space because they can work as both a crane, something that can lift equipment and move equipment, and they can move astronauts in the robotic arm. When we return to the moon, we will likely work with robots. They may be rovers or other types of systems that we work with. So it's a good way to start. And on the left, we're using kind of a virtual system, a virtual reality, to help us prepare so that we can actually use the system on the right. And that was one of the robotic arms I used in space. These are my crewmates I flew with, Stephanie and Jim. They're using the space station robotic arm, which you can see they're working on the left, but they have a backup system ready to go on the right. And that is because we often put astronauts in the robotic arm, and so we want to have a redundant system ready to go and operate. So if you look closely, they're using that arm in the middle, and our astronauts are in that back of the payload bay. And this is an example of more recently, it was either earlier this year or late last year, where Josh Quesada is in the foothold of the robotic arm, and he's putting a solar array, this is called a roll-out solar array, he's putting that into place because the space station has been operating for more than 23 years in space. Many components are starting to degrade, including our solar arrays. So this is like a solar array boost so that we can still keep doing good science on board the space station. Which brings me to talk about spacewalks. That's another specialty of training that we must do. So we start out working in a huge swimming pool, probably about 3 meters deep and about, let's see, if I do quick math, about 20 meters by about 30 meters. And so it's a really big swimming pool. And you can see I'm getting suited up here. That is my daughter. She's just a few months old, and my husband. And then I'll be lowered into this swimming pool. And so here on the right, you can see there's a diver. So this is obviously not space. This is a swimming pool. And then if you look closely at our suits, you can tell that there might be like holes in the backpack, or there's floats and weights. And that's so that we can either float up into the pool or we can move down in the pool. And this helps us actually pretend like we are doing real work at the space station. It's part of our critical training. Well, when actual astronauts go out to do spacewalks, they get into the very fancy suits. So you can see no holes in those suits, no floats, actual tools. And we suit them up, and then we put them into the airlock in the back, and we close that hatch. And then we actually pump the air from the airlock into the space station because air is really valuable. So we don't want to vent that overboard. And then our spacewalkers go outside. Spacewalking will be done on an actual surface in the future. I think it is a funny term for right now because he's not walking, he's like doing a handstand over the handrails. But it's a term that we've used, and so we keep at it. If you look closely, the first thing an astronaut does is put that safety tether down that connects them to the space station so they don't float away. And then they're able to operate either using handrails or, as you saw in the previous pictures, using the robotic arm. And this is a demonstration of the first spacewalk done by only women, and this happened back in 2019. And it's really significant because these suits were not designed for women. They only came in medium to extra large sizes. They were designed for men to work in. But we have thankfully been hiring more and more women, and so women are now also doing lots and lots of spacewalks. And again, they are swapping out batteries. We've upgraded the space station's batteries from nickel to lithium ion. So we continue to make the space station more robust for the future. Which brings me to astronauts have to be mechanics, or they have to be engineers. They have to be able to fix the equipment because the space station is aging. And when we're out in our solar system, we have to be able to fix the equipment. So here we have astronauts fixing a piece of equipment that's pretty critical. It removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere so that we don't become sick and get headaches. So it's called the Carbon Dioxide Removal Assembly, the CDRA. And we also can build tools in space. Samantha Cristoforetti from the European Space Agency on her first mission back in about 2014, she made tools from a 3D printer, and those tools could be used on board the space station. And that's important because as we go out into our solar system to work and operate, we can't think of every type of tool, but we can make the tools that we need as we go. And then on the right, Anne McLean is installing the refabricator, and it actually reuses or recycles plastic packaging that we use for food and turns it into the filament for the 3D printer. So again, thinking forward, just like we have to be doing here on Earth and being sustainable here on Earth, we also will need to do that in space. Astronauts are scientists as well. We have thousands of experiments that have been conducted on board the International Space Station. So every year there's a few hundred that are going on, and several of them involve astronaut work, including things like sequencing genes in space, working on medicine development. So this in the bottom is looking at how to build protein crystals for Parkinson's disease research. Victor is celebrating the 20th anniversary of the glove box, but this glove box has been allowed astronauts to conduct science in many different ways because it keeps them either protected from whatever they're working on, or if the thing they're working on has little pieces that could float away, it keeps them from floating too far away. And of course, we have lots of biological, not just on ourselves, but also thinking about growing food. And this particular experiment is using hydroponics, which of course we use back here on Earth and have been doing for a long period of time, but looking at the efficiency so that we can feed our astronauts on Earth, right? All of us, our Earth astronauts, to feed us better, and also feed astronauts in space better as we explore. In order to be able to do all of that, astronauts have to take care of their body. They have to have enough energy because they're living in space for 3, 6, 9, even 12 months at a time. And so that involves eating enough food. And it's pleasurable, of course, like we like to have celebrations here on Earth, so it's a pleasurable time to celebrate and have food together in space. And then also making sure we exercise. So here we're having an international dinner. This was when I was in space. We had 2 Japanese astronauts for the first time. Naoko was one of my crewmates, and Soichi Noguchi. So they were making us space sushi. And our cosmonaut friends contributed canned mackerel. And we, the US crew members, brought chocolates. So it was a really fun dinner that night. But numerous countries have sent astronauts to the space station. And this January, Turkey will be sending their first astronaut into space to the space station. So I don't know, what type of food will he be bringing? It will be interesting to see, but it's a very special time for all of us. And like I said, we have to work out in space. So we have treadmill equipment to put a load on our legs and keep our heart strong. We also have a cycle to also put a load on our legs and for our hearts. And then we have the advanced resistive exercise device. It can be configured not only to work out your legs, which keep your biggest bones healthy, but also can be configured for your arms and your abs. So it's an overall good machine for your whole body. And that is necessary because we weren't designed to live in microgravity, and we really have to be strong. We don't want our astronauts to come back with a lot of bone loss. So this exercise is very critical for keeping them healthy. Well, finally, like I said, I want you to be curious, I want you to be challenged, and then you have to be courageous. You have to go do the things that you're interested in doing. So you have to overcome any fears you have, overcome obstacles, and go do your mission. I was fortunate enough to fly with this crew of astronauts. We trained together for a year and a half, and we became like family. And on April 5th of 2010, the little girl who dreamed about going into space and built the model of Discovery in 1990 flew on Discovery of April 2010, almost 20 years to the day from that building that model. So I wonder, what are you doing right now to make yourself ready for your big dreams? What will you be doing in 20 years? I don't think that I believed when I was building that I would necessarily fly in space. I just wanted to, and I wanted to put the effort forward. But whatever you want to do, if you do the same thing, if you put the effort forward, your dreams can also come true. So I want to show some of the video from our launch. There's me in the center. We get loaded about 2.5 hours before we're going to fly. And we're out away from everyone we know and love out on the launch pad. We're waiting for the main engines to light. Those 3 engines come up to full thrust. And then, whoa, look at all that motion. Those solid rockets also light. Now we are going on the wildest ride for the next 2.5 minutes because those solid rockets, those boosters on the sides, they are giving so much power and they're causing so much vibration. Eventually, at 2 minutes and 20 seconds, they will pop off of the vehicle and fall back into the water and be recovered by a boat with Navy sailors on it. Then we will continue on the 3 main engines that you see glowing. The 3 engines will continue burning hydrogen and oxygen, and we'll have a smoother ride for the next 5 minutes until we start to pull about 3.5 times Earth's gravity, 3 Gs through our chest. So there goes the solids, and we keep going a total of 8.5 minutes before we reach what we call space. And then we float up into our seatbelts and we know we're there. After getting to space, we had a lot of work to do, including we had 6 tons of equipment that we needed to transfer to the International Space Station. So it's really fun to move equipment in space. I didn't do a spacewalk, but I supported our spacewalkers, so I talked to them for the 6 to 8 hours that they were outside. Every spacewalk, we had 3 of them. We love looking at Earth, right? We keep going around every 90 minutes, so just incredible views back at Earth. We get 16 sunrises and sunsets a day. We get to see the auroras. It's just an amazing place. But we can't stay forever. Astronauts have to come home. In our case, the shuttle was docked to the space station for 11 days, and then we came back after 15 total days in space. We landed at the Kennedy Space Center, gliding to a stop, and it was just an amazing time. I want to continue to encourage everyone to continue to be curious, challenged, and courageous because we need you. We are, all of us, not just the we NASA, but like all space agencies, aerospace, private industry needs you. These are all the different types of jobs that can be involved just in aerospace work. And so you don't have to want to be an astronaut. You may want to be something else, and you could be involved in it as well. And it's exciting times because we are going back to the moon. And this time, we're going to stay, and we're going to do it with multiple countries and multiple industries. So we're setting up for what we call the Artemis program, Artemis being Apollo's sister, and we are promising to have the first women and people of color go to the moon. So it's really, really exciting times. And I hope that you are thinking about how can I be involved, how can I contribute, and how can I remain curious, challenged, and courageous. And with that, I want to thank you again, Teşekkürler, and I'd like to open it up for questions. Thank you. Yes, so I'm wondering a best way to do questions. Hopefully you can stand and say it loud enough, but I think we also have some microphones. So do we have brave people that are courageous to ask questions? Yes, over here.
Hello, my name is Okin. It's really nice to meet you. It's a pleasure. You told us that there was 16 sunrises, right? How does it feel to see 16 rises in 24 hours?
Well, it's pretty amazing, but this is one of those things that I've thought about more living back on Earth. Those sunrises were really beautiful, but they're very brief, right? They only last 2 to 3 minutes. But here we see the beautiful colors of a sunrise or a sunset, and it lasts for maybe an hour, depending on the season. So I must say, while I enjoyed seeing those sunrises and sunsets, and they reminded me of the beauty of that thin atmosphere, you saw how thin that is, it also reminded me that I love Earth because we have incredible colors of sunrises and sunsets. Yes, that's how I felt about it.
Well, I have a few more questions, if you'll excuse me. You said the Earth was, such a beautiful place from Earth. What does it change, how do you feel, and what perspective do you look at Earth after you have come from space? Has it changed or not?
Absolutely. All astronauts will talk about this overview effect, about how when you leave Earth, you start to think about and understand Earth. And while I studied geology and know quite a bit about Earth's rocks and how it works and water on it, it's not until you're looking at it that you really see the complexity and the vulnerability. And also, it was the first time that I saw places like Northern Africa where it's so desolate, right? And there's just small oases. Like how valuable water is in places that are different than where I grew up and lived. So it makes you appreciate that we have to all work together to protect our spaceship Earth. So when I came back, that has really been one of my goals, and I feel compelled to be a part of how can I help protect Earth for all people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As my last question, I wanted to ask you. Sorry, I have a lot of questions.
I love that you have questions. I just want to make sure we also get other people too. Yeah. But go quickly.
Okay, what was the time that you were mostly scared, and I wondered how you handled it?
Yes. Well, early on in training, there were a few times with my airplane training that I realized I really wanted to do better and also make sure that I was proficient at the skills. So I think that's when I started thinking about, again, those risks that we're taking and just improving my skills so I'd be ready for flight. Of course, the day of flight, you're a bit nervous, but you've trained for so much time, you've thought about how to handle this nervousness. So I used that energy to really, really focus on what they had trained us on. And that first few seconds when you feel those engines light, okay, that makes you like, whoa, I'm really focused. But then the rest of the time, I just thought through, okay, I've practiced this over and over, and so just carrying out those skills. Yes, thank you for those great questions.
So it's such a wonderful opportunity for us to have a meet with you. So my question is that you talked more about technical parts of your journey, but what was the hardest part of being an astronaut?
The hardest part probably is studying for the spacewalks. I really enjoyed that training, but it involves a lot of physical work in the water while you're training, as well as mental preparation. So you do a lot of studying for that. Yep, that's what I would say is kind of the most challenging pieces.
Hello. First of all, I want to say that it's a big pleasure to meet you, welcoming you here. My name is Ensar. I'm a mechanical engineering student in here. And I'm really curious about the artificial gravity. Do you know, is there any researches about artificial gravity, and is it possible for you?
So we want to study in space how things behave in microgravity, but you can, using like a centrifuge, change how much you change the amount of gravity. So you could either increase the rotation or decrease it. So the same, like on the space station, we use this, if people want to have a slightly different, between 1G maybe and micro G, they can have small experiments work in this little centrifuge. Do we want to build space stations that do that in the future? Maybe some people might want to, because if we're sending tourists to space, maybe they need a little bit of gravity so that they don't get sick, or so that all their body systems are working, because maybe tourists don't want to work out for 2 hours every day. I don't know. It's an interesting thought.
Can I ask you a question? I want to ask you, by the way, it's a pleasure to meeting you here. Thank you very much. I want to ask you that how did you use the Earth gravity when you come back from the space?
How did it feel to transition from space back to Earth?
No, I'm just saying that how did you use to the Earth gravity when you came back to the space?
Oh, yes. Well, gravity never turns off, right? We always have gravity because we have the presence of molecules and atoms. So we have actually been using gravity the whole time we're in space. We're falling around the Earth, essentially, in its orbit. That changes if we're going to the moon. We eventually fall into the moon's gravitational field. But the way we use it is we change our velocity by burning into our vector. So we slow our vehicle down by burning into the velocity vector. That really drops us into the Earth's atmosphere. So the shuttle becomes essentially like this falling brick. And then we start to use the Earth's atmosphere to control our energy. And we do what we call S turns, because they make us kind of S like this. We use the Earth's atmosphere to start us slowing down. Eventually, we have enough air that we can use our aero surfaces, so that the shuttle had aero surfaces like an airplane. But unlike an airplane, which has engines, we are really a glider. So then we glide into our runway. At the very end, we have what we call the heading alignment cone, but essentially it's like a gliding trajectory that sends us and controls our energy so that we touch down at about 220 knots. So we've gone from 28,000 kilometers per hour to I don't know knots into metric, but we've reduced our speed so much. And then we glide into that landing. That's how we use Earth's gravity. Great question. Yes. Okay, yes.
Dr. Halukul from Istanbul Gelişim University, aerospace engineer. Welcome, and thank you very much for your kind and very useful information that you give to our students, our young people, to create their own mission and vision for the future. But I would like to ask some questions for more than persons. The thing is, as a developing country in Turkey, we also have to prepare something for our space missions, for our space policy and other things. What are your advices for the strategic plan development for space activities as the state, as the universities, as the private sector companies that we have to talk? What should be the education policies, especially for the high school, during the high school things? What are the points that we must prepare the students so much powerful to be able to survive and make their mission successful in the space? and what should be the research and development policies in our things, and employment policies, and what are the skills for a state to be successful in this space? Thank you very much.
Yes, well, I think I saw today, and I also had a chance earlier in the week between TechnoFest and Tuba Talk, and then today's tour of your aerospace and astronautics. I've had a chance to see that Turkey has been involved in a lot of meaningful work in space with satellites, with satellite development, with working with students going through the program here at İTÜ. So that is something I would say continue doing, right? This is something you're already doing that's really wonderful, and it excites from our young, because they, as they were explaining to me, already high school students can be involved. They also have rocketry clubs and ways to get involved in school. And then come to the university, right? And it's the department, as I heard from the chair of the department, it's growing. There's so much there's so much enthusiasm, and students are coming here and really working hard. And I saw developing pretty incredible satellites that have left from the space station as CubeSats, but then also satellites that have left from SpaceX vehicles from a higher orbit to study. And then that is all very important. Also, Turkey has their own astronaut that they are training, and they're using a partnership with Axiom, which is a private commercial company in the US. But when you already start planning for that and what that astronaut will be doing, he's going to be doing experiments that across the country have been developed by principal investigators. All that information will return. It will continue to excite the public. As we see today, I don't think there's any shortage of excitement about space. So I think you're doing all the right things in Turkey. Like, you are very forward thinking. And I guess the biggest thing I would keep encouraging is remembering when I showed that last picture of going back to the moon, it's not one single country. It's not one single company, it's all of us. So really thinking about how to internationally work as you go through your schooling and you think about the research you're doing. Go to international conferences, share your ideas and gain ideas, because that's truly how we're going to accomplish this. So I think Turkey is on a great trajectory. I think I heard most of that. So when we are looking back at Earth, is there like a psychological difference about it? And then when we return? Yeah. Does that answer it?
Why are they hiring psychologists?
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood. No, when I put all the jobs up there, and she asked, why are we hiring psychologists and psychiatrists? Well, because we have to take care of ourselves and understand that the human, when we leave for months at a time from the people we love, from our families, our friends, our colleagues, that there could be shifts and changes. So we call this study behavior health, and we want to understand how that works, and also make sure we support our astronauts. So that's why we have psychologists that work with us. Yes, and then of course they do their investigation, seeing if separately, if like teamwork, you know, does it change when you add certain dynamics? Because we want to understand that as we leave low Earth orbit and go back to the moon and further out. So a very important piece of the puzzle of studying for the future. Yes. Ah, yes, right next to you.
Hi, I'm Azra. It's very nice to meet you, and I think the job you're doing is very exciting. You remembered about my goals, and you said that we need you. Being a veterinarian is my childhood dream, and the jobs which you showed in there, like which could work in.
Yes, in space. Yeah, I know that list of jobs.
Could you please tell me what a veterinarian does in like these stations or NASA or etc.?
Yeah, so how can veterinarians be involved in exploration?
Yes.
Well, we have actually studied different types of animals and creatures in space. They teach us a lot about ourselves. And I learned from my Japanese colleagues from early experiments of like fish to more recently, of course, we use mice and rats. And how are there changes? How are there studies? How do we keep these creatures safe before they go? Furthermore, we also had an astronaut when I was in the office who had been a veterinarian, and he had done research and learned from communication of underwater animals. So it prepared him in thinking about like different ways of studying. So animals are communicating, we have satellites that communicate, right? So ways of development, even flight, if you think about it, we've thought about the past with birds and those type of development. So studying animals helps us think about ways and relationships that we could operate in the future. So kind of doing things different based on animals and creatures back here on Earth. Yeah, fun question.
Hi, I'm Mete. I'm a mechanical engineering student in Istanbul Technical University, and you are welcome again to our beautiful country. I want to ask something about, there's a popular industry today, space tourism, space journeys for private people or something with money. What do you think about this industry? Will it be like coach journeys in the future?
So I was originally concerned about space tourism just because I wanted to make sure that people going to space understood that they were taking risks. But as I've observed over the last few years with the multiple companies, for instance, Virgin Galactic, Blue Origin, SpaceX, Axiom, I mean, there's a lot of thought, of course, behind how they're sending people in space and making sure they are prepared as well. And I think that as in anything, as long as you learn and understand the risks and you appreciate the opportunity, whether you're paying for it or if someone else is paying for it, right? Like, so even in the past, countries paid Russia to use Soyuz, and currently Turkey is paying Axiom to send their astronaut. It is this type of partnership that helps us progress out and learn more. And then as those tourists come back, they will share their experiences with others. So I think there will continue to be more really deep thoughts about space, not just astronauts, not just scientists, engineers, mathematicians, but also artists and people working in the social sciences and the policy. We'll start to see how they feel about having seen Earth from space. And I think that will be a rich experience as well.
Hello.
I'm not making the choices. I'm sorry.
Last two questions.
Okay. Hello, I'm Naima Mervetamal. I just wanted to ask, as an astronaut, what do you think about the future of exploring space?
Yes, well, I think that we're doing it the right way. By going first to the moon and returning again, only this time looking at how we can operate and work at the moon, this will be like a close enough proximity to Earth to understand, and if there are emergencies, we could still get people back within a few days to Earth, versus if we went first to Mars, we can't get people back. Like, it would be very, very long time, and if it's an emergency, it's very unlikely that we would be able to get them back. So we would have to be able to solve those emergencies at Mars. And I don't think that we're quite ready to do that yet. So I really like the logical steps that we're making as multiple countries and multiple industries to prepare us to work at the moon and then see Mars and the further out in our solar system as the next steps.
Hello, I'm here. Thank you for being here. My name is Mira. I am astronautical engineering student here in İTÜ. And I was actually going to ask about is NASA suggesting a mission in Mars? And you just answered this question, actually. So my question then is it theoretically possible then, but for the NASA to launch a mission in Mars in the next decade, for example? Thank you.
Yes. So I think that because of the way we are planning, the next decade would be pretty quick because we are trying to first get back to the moon and operate there for a while and, like I said, solve these big steps to get us further into the solar system. But maybe by 2040, 2050, we will be at Mars. I think that seems very realistic. So yeah, we need all of you students studying and getting us ready to be there, right? Yes.
And the last short question.
First of all, I'm so excited and glad to meet you. My question is, NASA is known as engineering and space developments. However, I'm wondering what is the unknown and interesting things that is not very common about International Space Station, and how do you see after 20 years developments about space? Thank you.
Yeah, so something that's maybe unique or different that rather than just all the technical stuff I told you about. Well, again, like I said, we are all friends when we are in orbit, and in addition to sharing meals together, it's really special to share enthusiasm for learning about each other. Really, the first time I crossed the hatch is the first time I got to meet two of my Russian colleagues, and that continues to happen. We continue to make new friendships and develop new friendships as we go into space, and that is really very special. And we celebrate that together. So I think just remembering that we're not just technical people, but we are also human beings, and we care about each other, just like I hope, and this is why I'm here in Turkey, is to continue this positive relationships across the world and thinking about each other as friends, learning about each other's cultures, appreciating language differences, and celebrating the things that we have in common and learning about the things that are to be unique about us. So thank you again. Teşekkürler. It's been wonderful to be here. Thank you all very, very much.
So, Ms. Dorothy, thank you for your wonderful speech. And next, it's an honor to introduce Mr. Marvin Alfaro, the Cultural Attaché of the U.S. Consul General in Istanbul. He will provide us with unique perspectives and information on the topics today's event.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, if you could just please join me in giving another round of applause to Dottie for the great presentation and for joining us today. Thank you, Dottie. Thank you so much. And I'd also like to say thank you so much to İTÜ, to the İTÜ leadership, to the Department of Aeronautical Engineering for partnering with us to be able to have Dottie come and visit İTÜ and speak to an amazing student body. My name is Marvin Alfaro. I'm the Cultural Attaché at the U.S. Consulate here in Istanbul. And it's really a great pleasure to be here meeting so many brilliant students. This program is part of the U.S. Department of State's program. It's the U.S. Speaker Program, where we bring experts in various fields to come to Turkey to engage with different audiences like yourself, and to be able to exchange ideas and learn from one another. So this was a partnership between the U.S. Consulate in Istanbul, the U.S. Embassy in Ankara, and also the U.S. Consulate in Adana. Today is Dottie's last day and last stop to speak with you all, and so thank you so much again for joining us. It's great to see so many science majors and others studying the STEM fields. I myself studied meteorology and mathematics at the University of Miami, and then did my master's degree in international relations when I was pivoting to become a US diplomat. So it's a great pleasure. Continue being curious, continue your research and your studies, and then hopefully you all have a really successful career in the future. So thanks again for joining, and thank you İTÜ leadership for having us.
Thank you so much Mr. Alfaro. Ve kapanışa gelmeden önce tekrardan hepiniz STG23 hoş geldiniz. Ayaklarınıza sağlık. Ve sizlere bitirmeden önce bir duyuru yapmak istiyoruz. Savtek olarak sizlere yepyeni projemizi duyurmaktan gurur duyuyoruz. Defense Hub. Defense Hub nedir? Defense Hub, projelerinizi, fikirlerinizi ve inovatif yaklaşımlarınızı gerçeğe dönüştürebileceğiniz bir programdır. 30 Kasım 1 Aralık'ta SDKM'de gerçekleştireceğimiz zirveyle başlangıcını yapacağımız program, sonrasında eğitimlerle ve işbirlikleriyle devam edecektir. Takipte kalın, duyurulara devam edeceğiz. Ve şimdi sahneye Sayın Rektör Yardımcılarımızı hediye takdimleri için davet ediyorum.